Alec Burleson, outfielder with St. Louis. He's also in AAA. Big time raw power, but huge splits. So I have him kind of labeled as a Jock Peterson type player. Hudson Potts was a famous guy for a while, plus power, but man, there's too many strikeouts, and I worry if he's going to make it or not. Anthony Volpe is going to be a stud. He's shortstop with the New York Yankees. I think we see him at some point next season. Masyn Winn, Masyn Winn, really athletic kid, hose for an arm, could pitch on the bump if called to be, if he can't hit enough, but the approach has gotten a lot better. He's also cut down on his strikeouts. He's turning into a dude. He definitely made my top 100, midseason top 100. Number 6 is Evan Carter, another guy in my top 100. Outfielder with the Texas Rangers, only 19 years old, and showing speed, a little bit of pop. I think he's to get bigger and stronger. There's going to be even more pop in the bat. Oscar Colas, Colas, outfielder with the White Sox, another Cuban immigrant from their organization. So he's probably the number one prospect on their team. I think I haven't done theirs yet. But Cespedes has kind of fallen off a little bit. And Colas has a chance to be a big, strong, home run powering guy. As long as he keeps his strikeout rates down, he might achieve that. Jose Ramos, Ramos, he's an outfielder with the Dodgers in high A. This is an exciting guy. Huge raw strength, crazy bat speed. There's a little bit of swing and miss in his game, but I trust the Dodgers to work with these kids and get that down as best they can. But there's going to be a lot of pop in that bat. It's an exciting player. Number 9 is Zac Veen. He's an outfielder with the Colorado Rockies, another well-known prospect, one of the best prospects in the game, power and speed. If he can keep those strikeout rates down, he could be a superstar. Geraldo Quintero, athletic, great understanding of the strike zone. He's a little guy, 5'8". Look, you have to consider that when you think about rostering, because again, if he was 6 foot tall, you'd be all over him. But he's 5'8", but Jose Altuve is 5'8". Cedric Mullins is 5'8". So, I think Quintero is a very, very interesting guy. Omar De Los Santos has the 43 stolen bases and can't hit. Number 12 is Deyvison De Los Santos. I know I said his first name multiple times and I said it different every time. I apologize. Huge raw power. There's also plenty of swing and miss in his game. He's an interesting guy. Keep an eye on him. And then Yeison Perez, Yeison, big, thick body, good swing, chance for plus power. And Bryant Betancourt, Betancort. He's a catcher, athletic. Looks like he's going to be able to hit a little bit with good bat speed. Pitchers are Bryan Bello, Bello, right-handed pitcher with the Red Sox, is just about ready. I think he might work better in the bullpen. I know the Red Sox will be developing as a starter. We'll see. Kyle Harrison, definitely a starter, left-handed pitcher with San Francisco. I don't know if he's a pop-up guy, but he is a kid that's taken a huge step forward this season. Brandon Pfaadt, I've already forgotten Pfaadt. Pfaadt, right-handed pitcher with Arizona. Starter profile, big, strong kid with decent stuff. Probably a number 4 starter. Griff McGarry, Griff, McGarry, right-handed pitcher with the Philadelphia Phillies, high A. Huge swing and miss stuff. 70 grade fastball, an 80 grade nasty slider. Doesn't have a changeup and struggles to throw strikes. He has improved since his college days. And Masyn Montogmery, left-handed pitcher with Tampa Bay. Is having a really good season, probably one of the pop-up guys for this season. That is our list. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me take my final break and I get back. Let me break down George Kirby and compare him to Garrett Cole. So I'm watching the game a little bit last night. It was a late game. I think it was the Orioles in Seattle. And he was on the mound, and you expect with an Oriole team coming in for their first game on a long road trip, At least I think it is their first game. I could be wrong there. Yeah, that George Kirby would have a pretty good chance of doing okay, but Richmond's playing better. Cedric Mullins a good player. Yeah, they got some good hitters on that team, but you still would have thought that George Kirby could have handled it. Well, Kirby's after his first couple starts has really struggled over the last few starts, and I'm like what's going on? And if you go back, and I actually posted this on social media on Twitter, that I looked at my write-up at the beginning of this season. I said, look, premium fastball, throw strikes. I was a little worried about him throwing strikes in the beginning, but he's got really simple mechanics. It just repeats them and throws strikes. But it's a low spin rate ball. I mean, that's, when I saw him in the minor leagues, that's what I saw. So I had not looked at. So let's see. Baltimore, 4 innings pitched and 7 earned runs. The game before that, it was, against Oakland. He handled them just fine. Did okay in Los Angeles. Against Boston, it wasn't great. So he's kind of been up and down. But if you take a look at those first, let's see, his first game he started was Tampa. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, no earned runs. And even handled the Mets okay, just 1 earned run in 4 innings. First time against Boston, got beat up, and then got beat up by Oakland. So, it hasn't been consistent. So when I dug into his pitch FX data using Baseball Savant, if you don't use Baseball Savant, you really should spend time there, because it's just, if you like baseball, it's just a wonderful thing to see what's going on. And for some reason, I have a big baseball in front of me with George Kirby. What in the world is going on here? Oh, here we go. And when you go to Baseball Savant, you type in George Kirby, a little dashboard comes up on the right-hand side, and it's got average exit velocity, hard hit balls, and so forth. And there are 2 red dots on there. Red is good. Doesn't walk anybody, so he's in the 99th percentile. Great. His fastball velocity is sitting at 81%, so he's in the top 20th percentile in all of baseball and fastball velocity. Everything else is blue-grayish, right? All below 50%. And the 2 things that really stick out to me is average exit velocity. Guys are hitting this ball hard. And back in the day, before we had data like this, we would say, well, his balls are probably flat. And you can see it coming out of the hand, it's pretty flat. But now we've got spin rates that, I've got a gun now that tells me what the spin rate is, which is fantastic. But we have all of this pitch FX data that tells us what the spin rate is. His fastball spin rate is in the bottom third, and his curveball spin rate, probably even a more important data point, is bottom 15%. It's at 13%. So he's got a below average spin ball rate and a very poor spin rate on his curveball. So then you go down a little bit and you take a look at, again, 4-seamers at 95.6. That's plenty good. But the spin rate's 21.52, and he's got a 4.22 slug off of it, which is not bad. But then you take a look at that slider. Slider, that curveball spin is basically sliders and curveballs, and you see a 6.53 slug off of it, and you see a spin rate that's even less. I don't know how he does that with a slider. A spin rate that's less than his 4-seam fastball at 21.36, and his curveball sitting at 21.88, and those balls are coming in with very little movement on it, right? And guys are able to pick that up, and they're just smacking the crap out of the ball. His changeup's okay. He's only throwing it 98 times out of 600, so he doesn't throw it that often. But it's got a little fade on it, and if you go up from that, you'll see these different charts, scatter charts. And that tells you where the balls are being thrown. You take a look at the changeup. You see the changeup because he's a right-handed pitcher, that all of his balls that are curving and breaking are going into the left side. So you can see a slider. All those are kind of in that lower. The red is in the lower corner of the box. Well, the changeup is on the opposite side. And that's what they should be fading. They're a little bit more up into the zone. There's a bunch that are missing the zone as well. But that's okay. His slider's sitting right on the black, catching a little bit too much of the plate. His curveball is absolutely terrible. I mean, it's just all over the place. And you take a look at the heat chart of his four-seam fastball. Yeah, he's throwing it for strikes, but it's literally in the heart of the plate. So you're looking at a guy with premium velocity, can throw strikes, but terrible spin rates. And I'm thinking, well, this is the definition of a guy who's a mid-rotation starter. That's when you're evaluating, you're trying to figure stuff out without changes to spin rates or without using a sticky substance like players did in the past. How do you improve that spin rate? Well, you can, but you've got to go through some re-education and learning different grips. And he can learn that, but it's not trivial. Anybody can learn it, but it's not trivial. And I got to thinking, like, who else had that profile? And it was actually, I mean, if you've listened to Tim and I talk for years, which I know a lot of you have, that was Gerrit Cole when he first came into the league. And I guess when you don't have used Baseball Savant for a while, this big, gigantic baseball comes up. Now, if you go to Gerrit Cole and you take a look at him now, I mean, he's obviously one of the best pitchers in baseball. Guys have been hitting his balls pretty hard, right? So he's in the bottom third of exit velocity, meaning guys are hitting the ball hard. But chase rate is high, whiff rate is high, spin rates at 94%, curveball spin rates at 89%, fastball velocity is at 90. I mean, we're talking that's perfect, right? I mean, that's a guy who is in the top 10% of all pitchers in terms of raw stuff. Now, why are guys hitting his ball too hard? That's probably location. But we go back and take a look at his spin rates, and his spin rates are a thing of beauty. Remember when Cole, we all thought that the sticky substance was going to be a real problem with Gerrit Cole? Well, once that was kind of turned illegal and you have to get checked, his spin rate went down a little bit. He was sitting more like 2,500 with his curveball at 2,800. But, he's lost maybe 50 to 100 RPMs off of his fastball from a spin standpoint. But it's still one of the best in the league at 2,455. So that shows you that he's doing that naturally. At least, I mean, it could still be sticky substance, but it's either he's learned a new skill or he's found a way to hide it. I'm going to be positive here and say he's learned a new skill. But if you go back to prior to going to the Houston Astros, let's just go back when he was in 2015, when he was struggling with, I'm assuming that was a year that he was struggling with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Spin rate on his four-seam fastball was 2155. Sound familiar? His slider was terrible at 1925. He was throwing a sinker back then. His curveball was still pretty good at 2465. Sinker was 2150. So, I mean, it was the same spin rate of his four-seamer. And 2016, 2185. 2017, 2164. Oh, gets the big trade to the Houston Astros. Jumps up to 2379, then 2530. So he was able to learn to spin the ball. This year he's actually dropped the slider and moved to the cutter, and he's become even nastier because that cutter's a really good pitch. It might be a little bit why he's having some guys are hitting him a little hard, because maybe that cutter, since it's a somewhat of a new pitch, might be catching a little bit too much of the plate. But here's a guy that went from a number 3 starter, even though he was the first overall pick. We didn't have all of this data available back when he was in 2011, when he was, the number 1 overall pick. Just didn't have that data. Now it's all sitting here that we can take a look at that. Again, I have a radar gun that can tell me what the spin rate is. I don't know how accurate it is. Is it as accurate as my $2,500 radar gun, as accurate as the $1 million setup that Major League Baseball fields have in it? I doubt it, but it's probably a pretty good estimation of that. We can tell what's going on, and we know the importance of spin rate. And so that was a number 3 start. If we were to go back and take a look at Gerrit Cole back in those days, he was a fine pitcher, but it was more of a number 3 starter, which is, I think, where we are with George Kirby.